Our story, Part 28, The Thrift Store. In the last episode, I told the story of how Utah Food for Families began with a simple pallet of chicken. The thrift store started in a similar way. We were just trying to help people. Early on, we became aware of many refugees and immigrants coming to Salt Lake City from other countries. Many of them arrived with very little. They needed clothes, shoes, furniture, dishes, pots and pans, basic things to help set up a home. So we began asking the church and the Christian community for help. If you have extra clothing, furniture, household items, or things a family could use, bring them to us. We will get them to people who need them. And people responded fast. Items started coming in so quickly that before long, we were renting storage units. Then another storage unit. Then another. We turned those storage units into little shopping centers where refugee families could come and pick out what they needed. It was beautiful, but it was also expensive. And after a while, we realized it was not really solving the problem the way we hoped. We were helping people, but the system was clunky, costly, and hard to manage. One of the women involved in those early efforts was Dulce. Dulce had a heart to help the refugees and was very involved in serving them. One day, she had an idea. What if we opened a thrift store? That way we could keep helping people, but also generate revenue to support ministry and make the whole thing more sustainable. I thought it was a great idea. I also thought it was a terrible idea. It was great because it made sense. It was terrible because we had never run a thrift store. We had no idea what we were doing, but that seemed to be a common theme in our story. So we prayed, Lord, if this is what you want, give us wisdom. Give us direction. Open the right door. We began looking for space, and before long we found a location that just felt right. It was in a good area, with a lot of traffic. The landlord was willing to work with us, and the rent was very reasonable. The space was small, but we thought it might be enough to get started. At the time, there was a consignment shop in the space called Go Bananas. The woman who owned it was closing the business because she needed to care for family. So we asked if we could buy the inventory, displays, computers, everything she would be leaving behind. She gave us a price, and honestly, it felt too low. I remember thinking, I do not think I can sleep at night if we give her that little. So I raised the offer. Then I thought about it again and raised it some more. I kept moving the number until I finally reached the place where I felt like I could sleep. That became the number. She was a Christian, and she loved the idea of that space becoming a Christian thrift store. Later, I learned something interesting about that building. That particular space had a long history of Christian presence. It had been a Christian bookstore. It had been a church. Then it had been Go Bananas. And now it was becoming our thrift store. That may not sound like a big deal, but in Salt Lake City, that felt unusual. It felt like holy ground. Like God had already been using that little space long before we ever walked through the door. So we moved forward. And very quickly, we learned something. We really did not know how to run a thrift store. We just knew we wanted it to be more than a place where people bought used things. We wanted it to be a lighthouse in the community. A place where people could be helped. A place where people could be prayed for. A place where people could receive kindness. A place where the money that came in would go back out to help ministry and serve people. We did not want to be afraid to give things away. We did not want to be afraid to help. We wanted people to know that the thrift store belonged to Jesus. Before long, donations started pouring in. People heard what we were doing and began driving across town to bring us their items. Clothes, furniture, household goods, more and more came in. Soon we realized the space was not big enough. We did not just need room for shoppers. We needed room in the back to process donations, sort items, price things, and get them onto the floor. A space behind us became available. Then a space beside us became available. So we expanded. But just as we were getting ready to open, the city came to us and said, "You cannot have a thrift store here." There was a rule in that area that did not allow a thrift store within a certain distance. That was a problem. We explained that we had signed the lease with the clear understanding that this would be a thrift store. We went before the city commission, talked with them, and explained what we were trying to do. In the end, they gave us a conditional use permit. That meant we could have the thrift store there, but we could not move it somewhere nearby later and keep that same permission. In other words, God had opened a very specific door, and we needed to walk through it. So we opened slowly. We learned as we went, and the thrift store began to grow, almost too fast. I was still pastoring a large church. We had other ministries going. The church was growing. Life was full. And now, I found myself at the thrift store almost every day, trying to figure out how to make it work. For a while, I felt like I lived there. I was overwhelmed. We had donations coming in, people needing help, volunteers serving, customers shopping, and a ministry growing faster than we knew how to manage. And there came a point where I was ready to shut it down. I remember thinking, Lord, I cannot do all of this. The idea was good. The need was real. The ministry was touching people, but I could not carry it. We needed someone who could step in, understand the heart of it, and help lead it. And that is when Leslie came into the story. But that is a story for next time.